Joining me today is Lybi Ma. Her new book is How to Be Less Miserable, End the Negative Mind Loops and Find Joy. As executive editor of Psychology Today, Lybi Ma offers current research on the human brain's tendency toward negative thinking, why we do it, and why it's so hard to stop doing it. She examines methods to overcome the patterns that lead to stress, anxiety, depression, and other of life's uncertainties. In addition to producing the print magazine, she edits its website and blog platform, which hosts more than 900 authors, academic researchers, and journalists. Lybi Ma has a blended family of 5 adult children and lives with her husband in Westchester. Welcome to the show, Lybi. Nice to have you on today.
Thank you.
So I guess my first question is, we always think, or I think of, I'll say, the pursuit of happiness. You know, the Constitution, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? Is that the same thing as how to be less miserable?
No,
No, okay.
I don't.
Why? Yeah.
You will not see happiness on the cover of this book. And that is partly because of my upbringing. So my parents didn't run around and say, "Are you happy today? You have what's going on?" No, they didn't never ask that.
But did they say, are you miserable today? Was that a
Well, they
question?
were no, there wasn't a question. It was just say, why do you have a face of mourning in Chinese, of course? And they never gave happiness or any particular emotion any weight. And I carried that through to my kids. Why can't I be happy today, Mom? And I would say, well, let's just shoot for contentment or some peace within instead. The whole pursuit is kind of strange to me. This idea of, for example, the bucket list. You have something on your list. I must go to see the Northern Lights. Well, you're happy when you're doing it, and then it fades, and you have a base level of mood that you return to. So, a happy event. Well, my son got married. I was so happy for weeks and weeks. I adore this girl he married. But after a few weeks, well, life was normal.
But okay, so after a few weeks, life was normal. You're not on that high from the wedding, right? Your son's
Right.
wedding with this girl that you really like or love. But then do you automatically do you become depressed or
No,
anxious
no,
or yeah.
I'm not a depressed person, but I just want to point out that we all have a set level of mood. And this has been researched by many, many people. One that I think of often is Sonia Lyubomirsky at UC Riverside. And she put it very nicely. Happy, cheerful people are here, and grumpy people are down here. And maybe they move a little higher in their level of happiness, but they will always go back down to their set level. And that is just the way it is.
So
We
is
have,
this pursuit of happiness getting in our way? Or is that what you're saying? I mean, because it doesn't seem to be anything that is positive, at least from what I gleaned from your book. So what if it's not doing what we want it to do or that feeling, what do we do? I mean, because I think I said in the intro, like we get anxious, we get depressed, and so how do we, navigate those feelings and sort of get on a better trajectory, I guess.
the there's another researcher, Ethan Cross at University of Michigan. He has done very interesting work on the fly on the wall concept. And it is actually very Asian and Buddhist. You become the fly on the wall and you observe the movie of your life. And you're detached and just watching. And this observation lets you take it in be aware, but you're not in it. And that is a problem when we're in it. We are fighting with life and we think we have to do X, Y, Z to be happy. But that may not be the case. We just watch what it is. The thought that you're having, I'm a loser, it's going to go away. You're just having a thought, and you can be a little Buddhist about it, let it go, and just watch it. It's not a big deal. Um, we put too much weight on emotions of all kinds, and when we have a negative emotion, sadness or depression or not depression, clinical depression is a different thing. What I'm saying is feeling blue, anxious. We put a lot of weight on this and we try to run from it. But they're just emotions and you should feel them and not get too wound up in it.
So I'm thinking of this expression, kind of go with the flow instead of,
Yes.
yeah, and getting away from that fight. You mentioned fighting, we're fighting the emotion, we're fighting it, but just I'm picturing as you describe it, the kind of the movement on the wall or our life going by. So anyway, so it's sort of just I'm keep going back to that, but go with the flow. And one of the things that you say, as I understand it, that life is suffering, but suffering has a cause and then it has an end.
Yeah, it's temporary. It's all temporary. It doesn't have to be with you forever. And also, our thoughts are very irrational a lot of the time. So we have distorted thinking. We jump to conclusion. Oh, my date hated me, or we fortune tell. Why would they call me back? I'm a loser. Or mind reading. I know what you're thinking about me, and it's bad. Catastrophizing. Everything that happens to me is always bad. It's just so we do these things in the head, and this bias that we have toward negativity ensures that the insults and grievances that come our way stay with us for a very long time. You might wake up in the middle of the night and think, why did that person say that to me? Oh, this is horrible. Why didn't my mother call me back? She's sick. Well, actually, they're just living their lives and they're probably not thinking too much about you. They're worried about their own lives.
But are you saying we make up stories?
Yes,
Yeah, we're just making up these stories that are really
very, very distorted.
very distorted, yeah.
Yes.
And predicting the future, and we don't know what the future is, or we do all of those kinds of things. So we put ourselves in I'm calling that in those predicaments. So how do we build up this a resiliency, sort of a mental flexibility? What do we do? What would be the key? I guess um, I don't know if this is one of the major um, points in your book. How is that going to, yeah, build? I think building resiliency would be one of them. Would be key.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. You do have to be resilient and have some thick skin when it comes to your own thoughts. You another person that I think of in this conversation is Stephen Hayes at the University of Nevada. He created ACT, acceptance commitment therapy. And I would think that he is a little Buddhist. He talks about being psychologically flexible and accepting the flow of life, as you say. So the idea of not stop fighting with life and calling out your brain that what your brain is telling you is not true, it's very much in his area of thought. So calling it out, being aware, um,
Be
all of
kind to
these.
yourself. That's one of the,
Yes,
just be kind
yeah,
to yourself. Trust
yeah.
yourself, right?
Show yourself some grace, for goodness sake. That another person, your listeners can look up is Kristen Neff, and she has done quite a lot on compassion, compassion for others, compassion for ourselves, showing ourselves grace. And once we do that, we can accept and go with the flow.
And I think I read in the beginning that you have a blended family. Am I right?
Yes.
All right. So you have, I'm assuming that you went through a divorce.
Oh, yes.
Okay, and divorce is catastrophic for most, maybe
Yeah.
catastrophic, not for
Yes.
everybody, but that's one example of, at the very least, a very difficult situation. So just maybe this is my last question, like personally, how did you handle that? How was that for you?
I did not speak to my ex-husband for a very, very long time. And I was collecting my grievances. I was harboring them like they were my friends. Well, after a while, I got very tired of doing that. I was hanging him by his toes in my imagination, but it really wasn't getting me anywhere. And I did not think it was helping the children. We needed to work together. So I learned to accept everything that happened and trudge on. And now I have this wonderful family, and he is part of our lives. My stepkids call him Uncle Carl. Um, and he has a very funny bromance going with my husband. So so it's
One
all quite.
happy blended
Yeah,
family, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. It is a crazy situation. We go on vacation together and he came to my stepdaughter's wedding, and my stepdaughter said to her mom while we were getting our mani-pedis done, Mom, Libby's ex is like the crazy uncle.
But you had to let go, I guess is
Oh,
really what
yes,
right? You had, I mean, because in the
absolutely.
beginning you're talking about, and probably in
Let it
what
go.
most of us experience, yeah. So
Let it
you
go.
let it go. And getting back to go with the flow, just let it go. All right, what would you say? I mean, we've been discussing a lot of issues that obviously are covered in your book, but what can you leave us with? I mean, why should we go out and get Libby Ma's book? Why should we, yeah, or listen to it on Audible?
Well, I'm getting a lot of notes on social media and personal notes. Oh, yeah, sometimes I feel very miserable and I have these loops in my head, and it just goes back to something that someone said to me. Well, we don't have to do that, and I can show you how with evidence. We have proof with the wonderful researchers that I work with at Psychology Today, and I have learned a lot from them over the past more than 2 decades of editing their content. I've learned a lot from them, and I want to share it with everyone else.
So to share it with everyone else, can you give us websites to go to, platforms to go to where we can
Any
obviously,
any major Amazon, Barnes and Noble, BookBub, it's everywhere. So, and it's in audio form, ebook, all of it.
so there's no reason for us not to connect, right? We have,
That's
yeah.
right.
I'm
That's
actually
right.
an Audible phone. I like to listen to it
Yeah,
actually.
you'll find it there.
Yeah, so great. Well, it's great having you on the show today. I know we were cut short a bit, so you got to come back, but I thank you.
Thank you.
And the title of the book, How to Be Less Miserable, not how to be happy, but how to be less miserable, right? End the negative mind loops and find joy. And that's what I've been talking to Libby Ma about today. So get out there, get the book, listen to the book. Yeah, and stay calm, go with the flow.
That's right.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks,
Thank
Libby.
you.
Yep. Joining me today is Robbie Bach, MBA. He's author of The Blockchain Syndicate, a contemporary thriller. The Blockchain Syndicate offers a gripping exploration of trust, technology, and how easily the world we know can come unraveled. Robbie Bach's insider knowledge of the tech world and his deep involvement in civic and policy circles lends a chilling authenticity to this thriller. As the chief Xbox officer at Microsoft, he spearheaded the creation of the iconic Xbox and has served on many national boards, including the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, Boys and Girls Club of America, and Habitat for Humanity International. He has an MBA from Stanford and resides in Washington State with his wife, Pauline, and their yellow lab, Roscoe. They have three grown children, and they also have two grandchildren. Welcome to the show. Nice to have you on, Robbie.
Kathryn, nice to be on. Thanks for having me.
Okay, this is quite a story, obviously. I think before we begin, though, because the title is The Blockchain Syndicate, what is a blockchain? I know a lot of people don't actually know what that is. Yeah.
So blockchain is the technology behind cryptocurrencies. And basically what it does in an ordinary business, if you have a set of shareholders, let's say, there's somebody who keeps track of the list of the shareholders and exactly how many shares they have. In blockchain, that's all done digitally. It's all done in a distributed network, and it's all done anonymously. So you don't know who's the shareholder is, so to speak. And that's why in cryptocurrency, there is a register that keeps track of how many units of that currency you have. And nobody can see that. It's distributed across the web, so to speak, and it's anonymous. And so what happens in the blockchain syndicate is somebody uses that technology to create a criminal syndicate where it's impossible to see who the actual members of the syndicate are.
So in other words, there's no transparency.
Well, this is what's strange about blockchain. There's ultimate transparency. You can see every transaction that happens, but you can't see who the people are doing the transaction. So it's this yin and yang thing of lots of transparency in terms of the transactions themselves, but complete anonymity for the people who are taking it.
Right. So let's talk about the book, and then because the book is really, I think, as you describe it, it's a novel, but it really is it relates to what's happening today, right? To
Yeah,
us, the
correct.
possibilities of what could happen if things go awry. So can we make that connection?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a contemporary novel. It's dealing with issues that are going on in the country right this minute. And I sort of believe in writing in the here and the moment, and kind of helping people both enjoy the thrill ride, because it is a thriller and you should enjoy the book, but to also, when you get done, say, oh, I learned a little bit. That's interesting.
It's also scary, or it scares
well,
me. Maybe
well,
because of my ignorance, and that's part of it, right? Yeah.
the scary part, of course, is what makes it a thriller, right? At some level, if you're a thriller writer, you have to put people on their edge of their seats. And so that's my task as an author.
Okay, so you've done that. So give us just a short synopsis. Don't, give away the candy store, but just, whet our appetite.
So the main character in the book is Senator Tamika Smith. She appears first in the first novel in this series called The Wilkes Insurrection. This is now her second adventure, so to speak. And Tamika is being personally attacked. And she doesn't understand why she's being personally attacked, but her boyfriend has been kidnapped. His daughter is targeted in a school shooting. And suddenly she's on the run trying to figure out what these people are trying to do. On the antagonist side of the story, you have a series of antagonists whose goal is to bring down the US government. They want to attack the US financial system and use the debt and deficit that the United States government carries as a weapon against the government. Because Tamika is a key figure in politics, she is their target. The story unfolds from there. It's sort of old school crime syndicate and new school cyber crime combined together. The story spans from California to Washington, D.C., to the Netherlands and back again.
I want to talk about the new school cybercrime
Sure.
because, yeah. All right, so tell us about that. Maybe compare that to the old school. Like, what's the difference? Yeah, just tell us what's the difference and
Well,
what, yeah.
in the old school syndicate, if you think about the mafia, people would get together in a dark room and plot something to do. And the don of the mafia would send somebody out with a mission, and you go do this and you go do that. And the way the FBI and law enforcement would go after that is they'd try to get somebody into that room and try to figure out who the people are. Well, if you apply that same idea, but then use this blockchain technology, unfortunately, the people are still having the meeting and nobody knows who they are. And in fact, even the people who are part of the syndicate don't know who the other people are. They just know that they have a common purpose. And so the leader of this anonymous syndicate is able to direct and manipulate people who are doing things on his and her behalf. And people don't even know who's in the smoke-filled room. And that, to me, creates this tension of, can the FBI figure it out? Can Tamika figure it out? How does that play out?
Well, that's not just scary, it's terrifying because I mean, I'm thinking about so today, and we are applying it to stuff that's happening today, political stuff, AI, disinformation, all this political extremism, and what you're talking about, digital vulnerability, right? So is this happening? I mean, we're obviously, um, this is your read on it, right? But internationally, I mean, is this what's going on?
Um, sure. And I, leave aside the specifics of what's going on in the story and whether exactly that is going on. There is a digital world of combatants on all sides of both politics and on geopolitical affairs across the world. And there is absolutely those kinds of things going on. And the race, if you think of old school, our challenges with the Russians and the Chinese in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, you think of that as these spies that ran around chasing after each other. That's happening today. It's just happening on the internet. And it's harder to see. It's harder to know what's happening, but I'm quite certain that that is going on.
So, okay, given, let's say it is going on, and you, as I read in the beginning, you're the expert, right? In terms of the technology, how do we defeat the bad guys? I mean, what do you do?
Well, as the book plays out, you will see there are techniques to discovering who these people are. And it's the age old thing of an arms race, except now the arms race isn't about nuclear weapons, it's about digital technology. So the country has to remain strong in our own digital technology. Our law enforcement officials and organizations have to be world class at that. I worked at Microsoft. I'm not a coder. I'm a business leader there. But Microsoft to this day has a huge group of people who work on keeping people safe online. That's what they do. They try to prevent people from breaking into the network and doing bad things. And so companies, governments have to pay attention to that. And at the individual level, we all have to protect ourselves by being careful with our passwords and doing all the right things to sort of good digital hygiene to make sure that we're not easy targets.
Well, then how do we know who to trust?
Well, so this is the this it, look. We could make that statement about a lot of things. One of the challenges of being a citizen right now is understanding fact from fiction. And, that means you have to do a little research. You got to find sources you trust, whether those are news sources, other people um, who we trust. And there are trustworthy news sources that you can dig out and find the facts. And when you see something, you say, wow, that doesn't seem quite right. You got to do a little exploration. So it takes a little bit more work on our part. You can't just sit back and listen. When I was growing up, you sat back and listened to Walter Cronkite. Whatever Walter said was true. Um, that's not the way the world works these days. And so you have to be more diligent and explore and find the people you trust and continue to dig and understand what's truth.
So are we teaching, um, I mean, Robbie, are we teaching kids to do that? I mean, because, like in school, I mean, are there courses for that? Courses in AI? I'm not talking about high school or college. I'm talking about elementary school. Don't you have to start there?
Well, you do. And so as an example, I do a lot of work with Boys and Girls Clubs of America. And they are very diligent about making sure that they are teaching kids about good, safe habits online. That's just something that they have to work with kids on every day. Now, the good news is the kids are more facile with the technology than the adults. So the good news is they are doing this work themselves. But again, we all remember when we were young, we need guides, we need parents, we need trusted people in schools, we need people like at the Boys and Girls Clubs who are supporting us and guiding us and help us find the right way. But yeah, this is the reality of the challenges we face.
So AI yeah, I mean, AI disinformation. I mean, I guess that's key. I mean, that's part of for the kids, the learning process to be. I mean, I'm, the older generation, and now I think, and I don't know how you can get by this either. I get maybe too concerned that nothing is. I don't believe anything. I've kind of gone to the, on the other side. I mean, that's not good either. I read something and I say, well, that's probably not true. I mean, I'm exaggerating to some extent, but it's like, do I really believe this? I mean, that's another issue.
Yeah, of course, and what it requires, you don't want to go to that dark side. If you suddenly decide nothing's true, that's a huge problem. So, again, this just takes a little extra diligence. And the truth is, like, this book will thrill you and will push you to challenge some of your assumptions. But there is truth out there. There are reliable sources. There are relatively easy ways to verify whether something has happened. And we just have to take that extra step and not take things 100% at face value.
Right.
And I think that's certainly a possible thing for people to do.
Robbie, what's the dark web?
Yeah, so think of the web like an iceberg, and the part we see is the visible web, the places you navigate to, the sites you navigate to. There is an other side of the web, so to speak. That is, think of it like the underworld in an old school fashion. And there are websites there and communication tools there that are not subject to the same protocols and same security and same diligence that the iceberg above the water is subject to. And so it's sort of the seedy underground of what goes on the internet. You have to use a special browser to be able to find these sites. It's the dark and scary space that people shouldn't go.
Yeah, don't go. And I had no intentions, believe me, but yeah, that's good advice, right? But are other countries doing that? I mean, I would assume, you're talking about uh, protecting
Uh,
our vulnerability. Does our government or someone else's government, they have access to it, use it? How does that work?
yeah, I mean, look, it's I'm not the cyber terror specialist for the U.S. government or for any other government, so I won't speak as a professional, but I am quite certain that these are places where our digital security people, if you want to call it that, are paying attention. And when somebody says, it's the classic when you're watching a show like NCIS or any of these thriller crime shows, and they'll say, well, there's chatter on the internet. Right, that chatter is happening in the dark web,
Oh, all
and
right.
it's not like people are on Twitter chatting about doing a crime. That's not chatter on the internet.
Yeah.
Criminal chatter on the internet is happening on the dark web.
Yeah. Okay, so I assume, yeah, that's a whole other policing area, I guess, right?
Sure,
There are, I
exactly.
mean, I just hear there are just layers and layers of this, right?
Well, the
Um,
truth is, the reality is, in the physical world, leave the internet aside, there's always been layers as well. So you have to sort of conceptualize in your head, okay, there's the policeman standing at the corner who sees me go through a red light. Okay, that's one
yeah,
layer. Then there's the layer down where there's the detective who's investigating a crime. And then there's a layer down where there's the detective who's undercover trying to expose a syndicate. The same thing happens in the digital world. And
that's
those layers exist in the digital world as well.
okay. So then, yeah, that's you know what? Now I understand it. That's a really good way of describing it. I guess I'm thinking of like even spies, the what do you call it? Spies who go into other countries and
Sure.
yeah, right. Physically, I mean, yeah. So it's the same thing.
Yeah, there are foreign provocateurs, so to speak, trying to crack into our digital network. That's fact. And we have people who are trying to keep them out. Fact.
So, yeah, who has access to that information? Let's say in our country, like, you're talking about the layers, or I mentioned layers, and you're explaining what the layers mean. So, you have a president, but you get a president every 4 years and they have access to that information. I mean, how does that work? Do they have access to all of that information just by virtue of being president, even when somebody else becomes president?